We got some big AEW and WWE news, but first we're going to get our AEW story out of the way. Tony Schiavone has revealed that he will be on the commentary team for AEW Collision, and I actually don't know how I feel about this. I'm a huge Tony Schiavone fan, and I think he's one of the reasons why Dynamite has great commentary, but at the same time, too, if you watched all my videos talking about brand splits, whether it's WWE or AEW, I feel like these shows have to have a different voice for each of them, and I look at Tony Schiavone as somebody who should be taking the lead on Dynamite. I think he is part of why the commentary team is so great on Dynamite. And while I absolutely love Tony Schiavone, I was hoping that AEW would go for a completely different commentary team. And it seems like AEW really just doesn't have a long-term vision for Collision. I mean, I think that's apparent. I think a lot of fans have realized this. I think a lot of fans have realized that AEW Dynamite versus Collision. I mean, look, AEW is just like WWE. They're in the content-driven business, and that's what Collision is, right? They are content creators, because the more content you make, the more possible money you can make with these TV deals. And the thing is, when you look at Tony Schiavone being on the Collision team, I just feel like this is a little bit of a lazy move from AEW, considering the fact that this was an opportunity for them to establish a whole new voice to the show. And, you know, it just makes me wonder about Collision and its overall presentation. For a while, there were rumors that AEW Collision was going to look very similar to Dynamite in terms of the stage and stuff like that. And, you know, we'll see if they commit to that. But I think the whole purpose of launching Collision as a 2-hour live program on Saturday nights, I thought the purpose of this was to give fans something relatively new, and that's not exactly what they're doing here. And I just think that's problematic. And obviously some people will disagree. I'm not complaining for the sake of complaining, because this is something I talk about with Raw and SmackDown, right? I don't like the idea of them having the same stage designs. I don't like the idea of commentary work in the same two shows. And WWE obviously changed that. SmackDown now has their own announced team. Raw has their own announced team. And I feel like that is a lot better of a way to go about it. But nonetheless, Tony Schiavone is a hell of a talent, so I'm not going to complain about it being Tony Schiavone. But of course, I would have liked to see some change there. Now, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about WWE and some changes that are happening. We're going to talk about a repackaged gimmick. We're going to talk about a huge debut being teased, and we're going to talk about some changes to Raw. But we got to talk a little bit about Maximum Male Models. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about WWE planning for some talent being repackaged, and Fightful Select had reported that Maximum Male Models Mace and Mansoor may be getting repackaged. The team is set to undergo a possible new gimmick, and honestly, I'm not shocked that WWE would go this route. I actually like both of the guys, and I actually think the gimmick works for a comedy team. However, WWE never really did anything with them, right? Like, they've done backstage segments, and they might have wrestled on house shows and dark matches. They might have been on TV once in a while, and I was really intrigued to see what they were going to do with Maxine Dupree and Chad Gable and Otis, and obviously there is a storyline there that is developing, but it looks like WWE is ready for these guys to have a new gimmick. Now, Fightful Select did add to the report that initially Vince McMahon was actually high on the Maximum Male Models gimmick, but he didn't want them to be flamboyant, and obviously we have seen their character get scaled back quite a bit since they originally came into the company. And I think, honestly, like, I feel like, again, it's a comedy gimmick. It's a gimmick that worked for them. Obviously, some people really started to enjoy it, especially based on the social media content that these guys were creating. I think both of these gentlemen here are incredibly talented. And I just feel like, you know, everybody has this idea that you need to have a gimmick that's on TV that is constantly winning, and I don't think that's the case, right? At the end of the day, we're watching a television show that is supposed to be entertaining, and yes, it is pro wrestling, and some people are going to lose, and not everybody's designed to be world champions, but if you can get over and be entertaining, I think there is a trail that can be taken for you to get to the eventual top. And I'm not saying Maximum Male Model, the gimmick, was going to do that, but I just feel like it wasn't even given a chance. But with WWE possibly going and repackaging them, I'm okay with this too, as long as they have a vision, because my biggest complaint about pro wrestling in general is that some decisions are just being made without the idea of actually having a long-term plan. And I feel like if you watch WWE and AEW, at times they have the vision and at times they don't. These guys are talented, And don't forget that these guys could do a lot of great things. But of course, I want to see something actually develop where they could be on TV wrestling. Again, it doesn't mean they have to win every match, but as long as they're on TV and they're wrestling, that's what matters. All right, guys. Gable Steveson, this is actually a really interesting thing that I really want to talk about. We've known for a while Gable Steveson. There was just a lot of confusion. Is he coming to WWE? Is he not coming to WWE? Like, is he going to be on TV? Is he not going to be on TV? Then obviously the Olympics are coming up, and then, you know, he's an Olympic wrestler. So what was really interesting is Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman posted a very interesting post on Instagram, and Gable Steveson responded to it saying, anyone, anytime, Roman versus Gable in Paris, ? Now, what's really funny about this is that it actually makes a lot of sense. If Gable Steveson is coming to WWE, Roman Reigns needs opponents, and he needs opponents that he can beat, right? At some point, we know that Roman Reigns is going to have his matches with Jimmy and Jey Uso and maybe even Solo Sikoa at some point. But who is next for him? And I don't want to feed a whole bunch of wrestlers to Roman Reigns that we know for a fact are going to lose. We don't want to see them, quote unquote, buried. Now, again, just because you lose doesn't mean you're buried. But at the end of the day, you don't want to be trying to push somebody to the very top who really needs that big feud. For example, Karrion Kross. I wouldn't put Karrion Kross with Roman Reigns, because if Karrion Kross is being built up for this massive feud only to lose, I think that right there could be very detrimental to his character. So Gable Steveson is definitely a guy who can go into a major program with Roman Reigns and he can lose and it's not a big deal. But the good thing that could come out of it is if Gable Steveson were to work very well in this match, if he were to do very well in this match, that would create new fans for Gable Steveson, and that would basically let Triple H and Vince McMahon know that they should be putting him on TV. It's a massive challenge. It's a massive test. But do you remember Logan Paul versus Roman Reigns? That match was bonkers, and it basically solidified this response from the fans that, hey, we don't mind seeing more Logan Paul on our TV. And that's what they need to do with Gable Steveson. Otherwise, his WWE run will be finished before it ever begins. And guys, we got to talk about our final story of today's video. Vince McMahon, he told everybody he wouldn't be in the weeds of WWE. Now people are wondering what the hell is going on, because Vince McMahon was not backstage at WWE Raw, but remotely he made some changes. And Better Wrestling Experience, BWE, the insider private Twitter account, came out and noted that Eric and Chad Gable, that match was basically cut short, and the reason was not confirmed as to why, but it was a Vince McMahon decision. Now, keep in mind, Finn Balor, Seth Rollins had this incredible segment that was very long, considering the fan response. The fans wouldn't let them talk, and it just got dragged out. So this is pretty much the belief that because of this, Vince McMahon remotely had WWE cut the match short. Now, I understand that a lot of people are going to be pissed off about this, but if a segment went too long, you might have to cut time elsewhere. You're not going to cut time out of your tag team championship main event match with Imperium and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. So yes, you are going to cut the Chad Gable and Eric match short. There's a lot of time in the next few weeks where they can definitely get back to that. Is this a bad thing? No. I think Vince McMahon, as I've said for the longest time, he's always been back. He's always been involved in some capacity. I think a lot of people are trying to blow this up into a very big deal. But the best part about it is it doesn't seem to be impacting stories, which is a fantastic thing. And it doesn't seem to be impacting the show in the sense of creative going downhill. But yes, he is involved. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you next time.